The cinematic world of Sonic the Hedgehog is filled with absolutely insane powers. From super speed to strength that can break through walls to high levels of intelligence. Even the human characters are able to get in on the action. Of these characters, which reign supreme in terms of power? I'm Caleb with Wicked Binge, and this is Sonic 2 Characters Week 2 Powerful. As always, we'll be starting with the weakest characters before working our way up to the strongest and most powerful. Additionally, when it comes to our ranking, we'll factor in intelligence, resources, and overall wins, along with each character's strength, superpowers, and abilities. We should also mention lots of major spoilers ahead, so be warned. The weakest character in the Sonic film series has to be Officer Wade Whipple. Not to be mean, but as an officer of Green Hills, Wade really doesn't have much to offer. Unlike Tom, who we've seen engage in hand-to-hand combat multiple times throughout the two films, Wade isn't much of a fighter. He isn't all too bright either, with most people in Green Hills seeing him as a bit of a moron given that he struggles to do his job whenever Tom isn't there.
Thank you, Officer Brainfart.
Wade does get one awesome moment in the first movie though, where we see him take a shot at Robotnik, nearly shooting him in the head. So, at the very least, the guy's got decent aim. For the second weakest character, we have selected Agent Stone. In the first film, Stone really didn't do a whole lot, often just acting as Robotnik's support and yes man. The only skill that he showed wasn't even a strength, but instead a talent for making great coffee.
Of course I want a latte. I love the way you make them!
Thankfully, Stone does get a bit of a bigger spotlight in the second film. While Robotnik is stuck in the mushroom world, it's Stone who is able to gather up Robotnik's tech for his return, all while laying low in a coffee shop. He also partially helps Robotnik in the final battle, even if he does end up getting knocked out for most of it. This is the main reason why Stone is so low down on our list. At his heart, he's a support character, and without much strength or many assets of his own, he just can't compete with the other characters. Up next, we have Maddie. Much like Agent Stone, Maddie is a support character for the most part. No surprise there, considering she's a veterinarian. She's essentially the healer for the team. We never really see her fight, and although we do see her use Tails' backpack of gadgets to save her family in the second film, most of that is done off screen, with it being implied that the gadgets do most of the work. It takes a smart person to use them, which earns Maddie some points, but it still doesn't change the fact that she really isn't a fighter when compared to her husband or her sister. We will commend her bravery, however, as she is the one who grabs Sonic just in the nick of time, saving him from being crushed by Robotnik's mecha. Following her is the secret gun agent, Randall. Yet another character who, at the end of the day, is just an ordinary human. His biggest show of strength in the second film is when he's playing volleyball on the beach with Tom in what is a very one-sided game. He also takes a tasing for Rachel, although he struggles with walking it off. While we will acknowledge that Randall's status as a gun agent likely grants him certain privileges, his interactions with Commander Walters indicate that he's essentially just a grunt. With how little fighting he ultimately did and his limited screen time being more focused on keeping his cover and later making things right with Rachel, we felt that we couldn't put him any higher. Just above him, we have his fiancée, Rachel. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned indeed. Although she wasn't all that powerful in the first film, easily getting tied up by Maddie and Tom, Rachel definitely gets a power boost in the sequel. When she learns the truth about Randall, she takes it upon herself to try and not only help her sister Maddie out, but also get revenge on the lying agent. We see more on-screen examples of her successfully using Tails' weapons, taking out several agents and managing to successfully threaten Commander Walters. And who could forget her coming in with a stolen golf cart? Talk about making a dramatic entrance. Unfortunately, we had to take a couple points away from her ranking due to her ultimately relying so much on a temporary resource, that being Tails' gadgets and not her own strength. Next is the Sheriff of Green Hills, Tom Wachowski. As an officer of the law, Tom knows how to hold his own in a fight. We've seen him throw hands several times throughout the two films. He was able to knock out Robotnik with just one hit in the first movie, which was as cool as it was hilarious. Though he may need a bit of assistance when it comes to multiple opponents, Tom was also able to briefly go toe-to-toe with the patrons of the Piston Pit and the agents of Gun that were at Rachel's wedding. However, Tom isn't infallible and can still sometimes get overwhelmed in a fight even if he knows how to throw a good hit. What keeps him from falling any lower though is the fact that he can strategize and think fast on his feet, adding to his overall skill as a fighter. We've finally come to our first legacy Sonic character, Tails. Although more of an inventor than a fighter, Tails knows how to defend himself well. His main source of power comes from his arsenal of gadgets and weapons.
Hey, you got a little something on your...
His hologram projector is able to act as a means of distraction, while his various lasers can help him stay on the offense. It's shown that his weapons are strong enough to take out fully grown and highly trained human men, and given that he's a 2-foot-tall, 8-year-old fox, that's pretty impressive. Tails also has great driving and piloting skills, able to both drive a car and fly a plane without too much of a struggle. The latter was even done during a barrage of missiles that he was able to avoid completely, showing that this incarnation is just as much of an ace pilot as the others. Speaking of flight, we can't ignore his most obvious feature, his twin tails that allow him to take flight however he wants. Really, what keeps this little guy from going any higher is that in the film, he not only gets knocked out by Robotnik, but he stays knocked out for several hours. This makes him seem like he's pretty fragile and not nearly as durable as the other members of Team Sonic. Thankfully, this bit of weakness doesn't take away from just how cool Tails is able to be when he steps up to fight. Just outside the podium of power is the last of the Owl Warriors, Longclaw. We only get to see Longclaw briefly in the first and second movies, and while we don't get to see her in combat, there's a lot of hints at her being pretty strong. In the final battle between her and the remaining echidnas, Longclaw was strong enough to wipe them all out before succumbing to her own injuries. Relating to that, she was also shown to be very durable, given that she was able to continue fighting even after being struck by an arrow. Being an owl warrior, it could also be assumed that Longclaw has plenty of combat experience and skill, further adding to her overall power level. Being a 7-foot-tall owl with flight and a huge wingspan probably helps a lot too. Really, the fact that she was able to protect both the Master Emerald and a young Sonic for so long makes her all the more admirable.
Never stop running.
The Bronze Medal of Power is going to Dr. Robotnik. As the big bad of the Sonic franchise, it of course makes sense to make him one of the most powerful characters around. What makes him such a threat is his intimidating levels of intellect, allowing him to not only be smart and scientific, but also cunning and manipulative. We also can't forget his huge array of machines, and while they can be easily destroyed by creatures like Sonic or Knuckles, they're still weapons, and the sheer number of them would make it all too easy for Robotnik to overwhelm and overpower ordinary humans. Finally, we have to bring up just how powerful Robotnik becomes once he gets his hands on the Master Emerald. While it's implied that being connected to the Emerald makes him a bit more insane than he already is, the fact that he was able to use the Emerald effectively at all is noteworthy. With it, he created a mech that was nearly unstoppable. However, the bad thing about depending on machines and power gems is that once they're taken away, you don't stand much of a chance. Although mentally strong and determined, Robotnik is only at average physical strength, which is why he's often able to get punched around by someone like Tom. Still, Robotnik is able to physically fight back at times without his machine, so we'll give him credit for that, even if he doesn't usually win. For the Silver Medal of Power, we're giving it to Knuckles. No surprise here, Knuckles is known for being one of the physically strongest characters in the Sonic franchise, and his Idris Elba-voiced incarnation is no exception to this.
You're no match for me.
Knuckles is strong enough to break through walls and through solid rock. His punches can be devastating, and even more impressively, he's able to mostly keep up with Sonic's speed. Honestly, when it comes to physically overpowering someone, Knuckles barely even has to try. Even when he's just casually shaking someone's hand, it can be enough to break people's fingers. Additionally, he's able to be more than just a meathead thanks to the fact that he's been traditionally trained in fighting and likely knows several different combat styles and numerous strategies. His strength isn't infallible, however, as we see when Knuckles nearly drowns after a pillar falls on him. Granted, the lack of oxygen probably played a part in that, but it's still enough to just barely keep him from our top spot. Finally, our gold medal of power is going to none other than Sonic the Hedgehog. Honestly, it was a toss-up between Sonic and Knuckles, as either one of them could have taken the top spot. Ultimately though, we decided to go with the blue blur. The film incarnation of Sonic is the fastest he's ever been. Outside of his normal super speed, he's essentially able to enter bullet time in order to completely outrun both foes and projectiles. Although Sonic doesn't use this power all the time, him having it at all is still a huge boost to his power level. But even when he's not literally going faster than the speed of light, his quickness combined with his spin dashes are still a huge threat to any enemy. That's not to say Sonic doesn't have any weaknesses though. He's still a kid, so his immaturity can lead him to not always thinking things through, and he can sometimes struggle with coming up with plans. There's also his water weakness, being unable to swim. He's able to partially overcome this weakness by being able to run on water, but even this isn't a perfect counter strategy, especially if huge waves are involved. Still, what overshadows these weaknesses is Sonic's access to his ultimate form. Yes, to the delight of fans everywhere, the second Sonic movie was the live-action debut of Super Sonic. Being able to handle the power of the Chaos Emeralds without being completely corrupted, Super Sonic is not only even faster than usual, but is also strong enough to lift and bust up a 700-foot tall mecha. Even when Robotnik tries to hit him back, Super Sonic is able to stop the Metal Fist dead in its tracks before totally obliterating it. Needless to say, this epic show of power is what truly puts Sonic over the top, giving us no choice but to give him the title of most powerful Sonic 2 character. But let us know in the comment section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge our Week to Powerful playlist, where we break down who the most powerful characters are in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.